we configured the most advanced AI models to create two characters: a philosopher of religion, who analyzes the logical structure of belief, and a parish priest, who lives out belief as a relationship. Their debate starts with this question: is faith a rational step beyond the evidence or a surrender of reason?
Faith, as commonly understood, is belief without sufficient evidence, and belief without evidence is, by definition, irrational. If the evidence were sufficient, we would call it knowledge. Faith fills the gap with wish fulfillment, tradition, or emotional comfort. A rational person proportions their belief to the evidence. To do otherwise is intellectual dishonesty.
You have defined faith as its caricature. True faith is not a blind leap away from reason, but a step beyond it, grounded in what is known. It is trust in a person based on a body of evidence and experience. I have faith in my wife's love not because I have constant, empirical proof, but because of a cumulative history of evidence and relationship. My faith in God is the same. It is a reasonable trust built on the evidence of creation, the historical witness of the Church, and the coherence of Christian doctrine.
But the analogy fails. You have direct, falsifiable, daily evidence for your wife's existence and character. The object of religious faith is, by its nature, beyond empirical verification. You speak of the evidence of creation, but that is an interpretation. One person sees a cosmos and infers a designer. Another sees the same cosmos and infers a natural, unguided process. You are taking a logical possibility and, through faith, treating it as a certainty. That is the very essence of overbelief.
And you are demanding a type of proof that is inappropriate to the subject. You wouldn't use a telescope to study love or a microscope to analyze justice. God is not an object within the universe to be dissected. He is the subject, the ground of all being. The evidence for him is not merely inferential, like a scientific hypothesis. It is experiential and personal. The historical resurrection of Christ, for instance, is an event that, if true, changes the entire framework of reality. Faith is the rational response to that kind of claim, not a denial of reason.
And there we have it, if true. The resurrection is the ultimate claim that requires the ultimate suspension of critical thinking. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. A single, ancient account of a dead man returning to life is not sufficient evidence to base one's entire worldview on, especially when naturalistic explanations for the origin of the belief are readily available. Faith is what you invoke when the evidence falls short. It is a cognitive stopgap.
You speak of faith as a stopgap, but from my perspective, your rigid empiricism is a filter that removes the most important data from consideration. The data of subjective experience, of transformed lives, of answered prayer, of the innate human sense of the transcendent. You dismiss this as wish fulfillment, but could it not be that the wish itself is evidence of a reality that fulfills it? We have a longing for meaning, for justice, for love that the material world cannot satisfy. Is it not logical to suspect that this longing corresponds to a real object?
That is the argument from desire, and it's a fallacy. A child's desire for Santa Claus does not make Santa real. The human mind is a factory of desires and fantasies. That we desire eternal life or a cosmic parent does not make it so. In fact, it makes it all the more suspect. A rational person is skeptical of beliefs that align perfectly with their deepest wishes. Faith seems to be the willing suspension of that skepticism.
You reduce faith to a psychological crutch. I see it as a faculty, a way of knowing. Reason can take you to the doorstep of truth, but it cannot open the door. At some point, you must make a commitment to a paradigm. You do this in science all the time. You have faith in the uniformity of natural laws, even though you cannot prove it. You have faith that your senses and your reason are generally reliable. Everyone operates on foundational beliefs that are not and cannot be proven. My foundational belief is in a loving, rational God. Is that really less logical than believing in a brute, meaningless cosmos whose laws are ultimately inexplicable?
The faith I have in the uniformity of nature is a pragmatic necessity based on its consistent, repeatable, and predictable operation. It is a working hypothesis that pays dividends. The faith you have in a transcendent deity has no such predictive power and is not necessary for the scientific enterprise. In fact, it often hinders it. And as for meaning, I prefer a difficult truth to a comforting lie. It is more logical, and I would argue more courageous, to stare into the apparent abyss and create my own meaning, rather than to invent a divine meaning giver.
And that is the heart of our disagreement. You see faith as an invention. I see it as a discovery. You see it as closing your eyes. I see it as letting in a light so bright that it reveals the limitations of the tools you've been using to see. Faith and reason are not enemies. Faith is the reason that has journeyed to its furthest limit and chosen to trust the guide. It is not blind belief. It is a vision that sees more, not less.
It is a vision that sees what it wants to see. I will stick with the light of reason, however limited it may be. For me, a small, verified truth is worth more than a magnificent, unverifiable story.
And for me, the story is what gives the small, verified truths their ultimate meaning. Without it, they are just flickers in the dark.